What does it take to win a championship? Every season, all 30 franchises are looking for a way to answer this question to achieve the pinnacle of basketball success, constructing rosters to create the perfect winning formula. Over the past 25 years, we've seen countless approaches to constructing a team capable of contending for a championship. From three-point bombers and defensive monsters to dynamic duos and super teams. However, if we take a look at the past 25 championship teams, nearly every team had at least one consensus top 5 player that season. So how do you win without having a top 5 player? In 2004, the Pistons built arguably the greatest defensive team of all time, upsetting a crumbling Lakers team in the finals. In 2014, the San Antonio Spurs, fresh off a heart-crushing loss in 2013 against the Heat, put on a basketball clinic, crushing the Miami Heat in 4 out of 5 games, an extraordinary display of ball movement, cutting, screening, and ultimately the greatest teamwork we've ever seen on a basketball court. In games 3 through 5, the Spurs had an offensive rating of 124.9, the highest on record, beat the Heat by an average of 19 points, and for 3 magical games, ascended to basketball nirvana, a beautiful, elegant, and efficient stretch of basketball unique among the greatest NBA Finals performances of all time. Spurs became a hive mind, acting on one accord, each individual's desires no greater than the team's. It was truly poetry in motion. This approach, popularized by the greatest coach of all time, Coach Popovich, has produced a 2-decades-long streak of winning seasons, the longest in NBA history, and 5 championships since its hiring. Until this season, no team has resembled the 2014 San Antonio Spurs in style of play, coaching style, roster construction, and most important of all, a shared anguish of reaching the biggest stage and losing when the championship was in reach. Until the 2022 Phoenix Suns.
You know how I handle my personal problems? I put my dogs on. I said I put my dogs on.
I've had many debates with my friends about how valuable a coach really can be. We've come to the consensus that bad coaches can't elevate good teams to be great, but a great coach can be the difference between a dynasty and a perennial first-round exit. There's plenty of examples of coaches elevating teams to contender status throughout NBA history, such as Steve Kerr replacing Mark Jackson and the Warriors subsequently becoming a dynasty. What happens when you pair a basketball visionary with a perfect player for his system? You get a 26-year tenure that results in the winningest franchise across all major sports over that time span. Pop could easily be mistaken as a grouchy old man whose sound bites usually sound like a drill sergeant berating his troops.
Watch Pop say no foul, no foul, no foul. Ettore Messina, his assistant, no foul. And then Green fouls. Look at Pop, how upset he is.
Whether you're Tim Duncan in the past or Kawhi Leonard now, you are not immune to being coached and being coached hard by Popovich.
Good passes. Shoot with confidence. I want some nasty.
Kings and a technical on Pop, and he may be gone. He is absolutely livid, and he is gone. Well,
okay, yeah, the man is pretty intense, but what sets Pop aside from other coaches is that Pop's anger always comes from him truly believing his players can and will be better. A lot of coaches can yell or be nice, but what Pop does is different, says assistant coach Chip Engelland. He delivers 2 things over and over again. He'll tell you the truth with no BS, and then he'll love you to death. Pop is famous for his team dinners, allowing families on the team plan, and regularly starting practice with a lesson on historical events. Danny Green says that Pop knows that basketball is great and all, but life is bigger than that. And Patty Mills says that the history lessons and discussions about current topics bring them together. We'll be at a team dinner with just the guys, and then that topic will come up, and we'll start talking about it. Will Perdue, a former Spurs center, says Pop sees players as a human being first and a basketball player second. These efforts aren't just nice things Pop does. They help to solve the greatest challenge every NBA team has to solve every season. How do we get players who used to be the best player on their respective teams to sacrifice their roles for a common goal? Yes, we're disciplined with what we do, Popovich told Sports Illustrated in 2013, but that's not enough. Relationships with people are what it's all about. You have to make players realize you care about them, and they have to care about each other and be interested in each other. Then they start to feel a responsibility toward each other. Then they want to do for each other. The league took notice of how successful Pop's coaching philosophy was, and his former players and assistants began to get hired throughout the league. The Popovich coaching tree has become a mighty oak, stretching its roots across the Eastern and Western Conference. Before James Borrego got fired from the Charlotte Hornets, 6 of the other 29 head coaches in the league had been an assistant under Pop. Former Spurs assistant Mike Budenholzer led the Bucks to the 2021 championship. Ime Udoka, a former assistant and player, has the Celtics in a Game 7 versus those same defending champion Bucks. And former head coaches Brett Brown, Jim Boylan, Jack Vaughn, Mike Brown, who just got hired by the Sacramento Kings, and Joe Prunty also served as assistants under Pop. Jazz head coach Quinn Snyder and Grizzlies head coach Taylor Jenkins worked on the Spurs G League affiliate team, and we haven't even talked about former Spurs players such as Steve Kerr and, of course, Monty Williams. 6 of the 8 coaches left in the conference semifinal round are connected to Pop in some way. Among all of them, Monty Williams stands out. Monty was always well respected in NBA circles, and the entire NBA family felt the tragedy of the loss of Williams' wife in February 2016. When Monty was ready to come back to the game, he immediately took the lottery team Suns, who were 19-63 the season before, into the bubble and went undefeated. The following year, Monty led his team all the way to the NBA Finals in a 2-0 lead before falling to the Bucks in 6 games, the Suns' first Finals appearance since 1993. This season, the Suns had the best record in the NBA, and Williams was named Coach of the Year, an award he should have won last season as well. The Coach of the Year represents not only the Suns' dominance this season, but is also a testament of the perseverance and determination Monty has displayed, while instilling that same passion and drive into his team and players, turning the direction of the Suns franchise completely around. Monty's coaching philosophy mirrors Pop's approach in many ways, and while Monty has acknowledged the influence of Pop on his coaching style, Monty doesn't coach this way because he saw Pop do it and succeed while doing it. Monty has always been a genuine person who truly wants to build relationships with his players. A man of deep faith, Williams' coaching philosophy truly stems from his ideology around service. I hope that when our players are around our staff, and in particular me, they know I'm here to serve them in any way that I can. I want to help guys get better. I want to help them get paid. I want to help them win games, but I want them to do it in a way that allows them to think that guy cares about me. He cares about my family, and he cares about me as a person.
In transition, you don't have Giannis find a man and be a guard. 2, look at me. You set a high level for yourself. That's why you're down. That's great. Now go reach that level, okay? And you can reach it with force. Doesn't have to be stats all the time. Go dominate the game with force, okay? Because you set a high level for yourself. Go dominate the game with force. Let's go.
While Pop had Tim Duncan for nearly 2 decades, Monty first coached a young Chris Paul in 2010 for 1 season and has now coached him for 2 years in Phoenix. However, both players play the same role for their respective teams, extensions of the coach on the court. CP3 and Duncan are the fulcrum of the offense, while also being incredibly unselfish and eager to get others involved. 8 years ago, 37-year-old Tim Duncan still commanded a great deal of respect from defenses, just as 37-year-old Chris Paul still torches defenses in the pick and roll. Both the Spurs and Suns regularly exploited teams in the pick and roll, hunting mismatches, springing open shooters, and creating driving lanes. This resulted in both the 2014 Spurs and the 2022 Suns being top 5 in offensive and defensive rating, as well as leading the league in net rating. Both teams had the best record in the league and led the league in points per possession on pick and roll. Don't have shot quality data for the 2014 Spurs. 28% of their shots came with the defender 6 or more feet away, good for 3rd in the league that season. Similarly, the Suns ranked 2nd in shot quality this season. Both teams also posted both the highest winning percentage and offensive rating in clutch time games. In addition, both teams ranked 3rd in assist to turnover ratio, just mere percentage points behind first. While statistics show that similarities in the dominance of both teams, taking a look at some possessions that display both teams' offensive brilliance makes the schematic similarities really stand out. The Spurs don't have a go-to play like the Suns, but they ran a motion offense that placed heavy emphasis on cutting and replacing after you pass. Everyone on the court was always moving, and anyone who's played basketball has probably had a coach yell at them about how the ball will always move faster than the player. The same elementary principles coaches teach in middle school basketball of passing and then screening away were key points in the offense. The system is designed to stay in perpetual motion until the defense makes a mistake. The Spurs would often initiate offense out of the high post, running stagger screens on the opposite side to free up shooters, curl Kawhi around the down screen after the point guard made the entry pass to Tim Duncan or Boris Diaw, and continue weaving and cutting through, attacking closeouts until great shots presented themselves. They would still run high screen and roll occasionally, but there was never anyone standing still, with the ball whipping around the court after the screen. Unlock this offense was the passing and scoring versatility of Boris Diaw, the continuous motion of Tony Parker, who never stopped moving even after he passed the ball, the great passing of Tim Duncan, and the unrelenting effort of everyone on the court, but especially Thiago Splitter, who would frequently sprint to run screens. And there was just a general unselfishness and a desire to play and make the plays for one another that made the system work. Offense worked so well is that this group of guys had been together for a couple of years at this point, there was a lot of continuity on the roster. This meant that they could trust that each player would be in the specific spots when they expected them to. It got to the point where they were throwing passes before the player even got there. When they're playing on one string like this, they were really hard to defend, and there's a reason why it hasn't been replicated to this point. The Suns love their Spain pick and roll set. A set that works so well because of Chris Paul's playmaking and mid-range dominance, alongside Aiden's pick and roll gravity and ability to occasionally pick and pop. The guard set in the back screen can flare out to the three-point line, and with good ball movement, they're nearly always guaranteed to get a good shot. They went to this play frequently in their run to the finals last year, and opening up Game 1 of the Western semis this season with some Spain pick and roll. Let's break down the Spain pick and roll really quick because this is such an integral part of the Suns' offense. Your typical Suns Spain pick and roll will start with DeAndre Ayton setting a ball screen on Chris Paul's man. As DeAndre Ayton setting that screen, Devin Booker or Landry Shamet or Cam Johnson or one of the other guards will come up and set a back screen on DeAndre Ayton's man. While Ayton rolls to the basket, Devin Booker will flare out to the wing, opposite of where Chris Paul is driving the ball. So I just showed you 3 different outcomes of running the Spain pick and roll. An Ayton finish at the cup, Devin Booker wide open for 3, and a Chris Paul mid-range jumper. This action is so hard to guard because if you switch, you end up with a mismatch when Booker flares out for 3. You can't tag Ayton on the roll with the low man if that's a small, and it causes so many different mismatch problems and also creates a lot of different opportunities for the offense. Because they run it so often, the Suns will also often work in some wrinkles, such as Chris Paul rejecting the screen, which throws the defense off balance because they're used to hedging against the screen and getting prepared for that screen coming. Sometimes Ayton or Booker will slip the screen and they'll be able to get to their spots much quicker than the defense is anticipating. There's just a lot of different options, and that's what makes the Spain pick and roll so dangerous, particularly for the Suns because they have the personnel. Their starting 5 is probably the best equipped to run this in the entire league. The CP3 Ayton pick and roll is deadly, averaging 1.22 points per possession on plays that the two were involved. CP and Ayton ran more ball screens than any other combo at 23.9 a game. They also love the dribble handoffs, often flowing from a handoff into a double screen to free up Book or another guard alongside the wing, typically forcing a switch while also forcing the defense to worry about Ayton diving to the rim. The Suns are not an isolation-heavy team, ranking in the bottom 5 in terms of ISO frequency, yet they average the 3rd lowest passes made per game this season, while still being top 5 in average assists. How is this possible? It's because the Suns are a pick and roll heavy team that is reliant on the shot creation of their star backcourt. Among players with 6 or more possessions as a ball handler and with 50 plus games played, Chris Paul ranks the highest in frequency and 4th in points per possession, just 0.04 behind the league leader Donovan Mitchell. The ball still moves, but it's a different type of movement when compared to the Spurs. In 2014, the Spurs led the league in passes made and assists. The continuity of the roster and the years of chemistry built between the players meaning that there was complete trust in everyone on the court, and playmaking didn't rest solely on 1 or 2 players' heads. In contrast, this Suns team, while having willing passers in Bridges, Cam Johnson, and Crowder, do not boast the same chemistry or even the same passing acumen the entire Spurs rotation had in that magical year. This is best represented by the usage rates of the respective teams. Tony Parker led the team in usage rate, but the difference between his rate at 26.2 and Danny Green's at somewhere around 16, who was their 11th in usage rate on the roster, is 7 points smaller than the difference between Devin Booker's 31.3 usage rate and Jay Crowder's, the 9th in usage rate, at 14.6. And so while the Suns were capable of stretches of incredible ball movement, anytime D-Book or CP3 were neutralized, the role players struggled to achieve that same incredible ball movement. A major difference between the 2014 Spurs and this season's Suns is Devin Booker and Chris Paul. The Spurs did not have a comparable player who could create their own shot in isolation. This is really what necessitated the shift to a ball movement heavy offense as Tim Duncan aged. And while having 2 capable scorers who can run your offense is beneficial, we just talked about how it can cripple your offense if one, or in this case both, were completely taken out of the game. And it happened this series by Luka Doncic, Jason Kidd, and the Mavs. This might be the most embarrassing loss in Game 7 history, playoff history, sports history. We've never seen a number 1 seed collapse like this. And as much as it has to do with the poor performance of Chris Paul, Devin Booker, and DeAndre Ayton, they didn't just start playing bad out of nowhere. Let's not act like Chris Paul didn't just have an incredible first 2 games in the series against the Mavs and a dominant first round against the Pelicans, not to mention how well DeAndre Ayton played as well. This sudden drop in effectiveness should be credited to Jason Kidd and the Mavs coaching staff for the defensive game plan, as well as the Mavs players for taking pride in defense and making the necessary adjustments from games 1 to 2 to games 3 through 7. The Mavs defense has been solid all year, at times looking like the best defense in the league, finishing 7th in defensive rating. The roster probably has the most 3D guys I've ever seen on one team, and the entire team bought in on the defensive end, not only in this Game 7, but from Game 3 on.
Now, come on. Channel 5, stay home. Stay home, Doe. Doe, stay home. Stay home. Stay home, Doe. Stay home, Doe. Chop, five. Chop, five, baseline. Chop.
This clip truly epitomizes just how much harder the Dallas Mavericks were working than the Suns. Just look at the way Jason Kidd is motivating his guys. He's got Bertans out there playing lockdown defense. I never thought I would see the day. Even Luka's out there competing. And honestly, I love seeing this from Jason Kidd. He's clearly a great motivator and a great coach. The Suns started game one with the Spain pick and roll, and the Mavs didn't do a good enough job communicating and left Chris Paul wide open for a mid-range. On this play, they were just hunting Luka. And on the next play, they want a dribble handoff, and Luka doesn't do a good enough job of bumping DeAndre Ayton on the roll, and it results in a one layup. And this is important for the next play. So you can see here, Luka does a great job actually of bumping Ayton. But Bullock, probably because he was used to Luka not bumping him on the previous possession, still sinks in when he should have stuck with Ayton until Kleber could have recovered, and then Dinwiddie could have zoned up the weak side. On the next play, it's another dribble handoff. This is just a tough position for the Mavs. Because Brunson is a low man, maybe Luka could have stuck with him for more than a second. But I don't know. It probably would have resulted in a dunk anyway. And then in game two, they were just hunting Luka mercilessly. I'm talking about Chris Paul he's like, whoever's got Luka on them, guarding them, come set a screen, switch him on to me, and I'm gonna go to work. And I can't remember off the top of my head, but they shot an incredible percentage against Luka in game two and game one, honestly. Doncic defended 19 ball screens in the second half of game two, and they averaged 1.81 points per chance when he was a defender. So he's getting absolutely cooked. So basically, the Mavs had to figure out three things. They need to figure out how to slow down Chris Paul, fix the miscommunications on the actions the Suns run, while also figuring out a way for Doncic to not get exposed defensively. The first adjustment they made was to pick up CP3 full court, and huge credit to Reggie Bullock for playing great defense on him, because it resulted in Chris Paul being gassed and making really bad decisions like he did right there. Even here, this is great defense by Bullock, but when was the last time we saw Chris Paul not throw it to the wing right there? He just wasn't thinking straight. And then on the offensive end, the Mavs would attack Chris Paul at every chance they got, because they figured, look, if the Suns can attack Luka, the Mavs essentially did the same thing. Anytime Brunson or Luka had the ball and they felt like isolating, they would get Chris Paul switched on him, and it was a bucket nearly every time. Not only does this demoralize the Suns team and demoralize Chris Paul, but also keeps him working on both ends of the court. He never truly got a break. This is another area where Monty was outcoached. The Suns made no adjustments defensively and continued to concede these switches way too easily. If you see Luka's hunting Chris Paul, you have to send help. I really believe Jason Kidd made this decision knowing how it felt to play in the NBA at an advanced age. As soon as Chris Paul turned 37, it looked like all those years of playing in the NBA caught up to him, and a lot of that has to do with how they were attacking him on the offensive end while also making him work so hard to bring the ball up the court. He just looked like he didn't have anything left in the tank after the end of this series. The Mavs started to load up on Devin Booker drives because one of the added benefits of tiring out CP3 was that the Suns' offense was just not as good without him running the show. This meant that they could load up on Devin Booker, show him two, double him at time. Dorian Finney-Smith plays great individual defense, Spencer bumps down to help, and then Kleber finishes the play with a great block. Here, Chris Paul doesn't even want to deal with the full court pressure, so he just gives it up to Bridges and doesn't even make an effort to get up the floor. And it results in a pretty nice shot for Bridges, but that's the guy you want taking the shots. He's not going to beat you. Jason Kidd also made a great adjustment by replacing Josh Green with minutes played by...
You know, what Frank, Nicolina, is that how you pronounce it? How he played tonight has obviously showed a lot of promise.
And Frank played great defense, getting 4 steals in Game 6, and also holding Devin Booker to 1 of 7 shooting when he was guarded by him, and holding the Suns guards to 4 of 16. Playing Kleber more minutes at center, picking up CP full court, and playing Frank improved the defense drastically, holding Phoenix under 101 points in 4 out of the last 5 games. A great way to help Luka defensively is to lessen the load off of him offensively. In Game 3, Brunson was aggressive early and led the Mavs in scoring after struggling in the first 2 games. From that point on, other Mavs stepped up, from Dorian Finney-Smith to Dinwiddie in Game 7. This meant Luka could exert more efforts defensively than it showed, with Luka having at least 2 steals in the last 5 games while being a positive defender. All the pieces came together in Game 7 for the Mavs, putting on a generational defensive performance that left the basketball world stunned. With Chris Paul neutralized, the Mavs no longer had to worry about CP hunting Luka on offense. This meant that they could focus all their defensive attention on Devin Booker, doubling him on every screen and forcing the other Suns to try and beat them. Book didn't get a clean look at the basket nearly all game. You can see here Dorian Finney-Smith does a good job of playing in between and showing pressure, and it results in a tough mid-range jumper. Here, coming off the screen, they double, show 2, and it ends up in a turnover. And then in the next play, Book comes around a double screen just to get stonewalled by Luka at the rim. Booker saw a crowd every time he drove the ball, got blocked by Kleber here, And even if he didn't shoot the ball, it resulted in tough shots for the rest of his teammates because of the defensive intensity and effort by everyone on the Mavs, including Luka and Davis Bertans. Here he drives to the hole, kicks it out to Bridges, but look at the rim protection by Dorian Finney-Smith, and then a great rebound by Dwight Powell. Here he comes off the curl, tries to drive to the basket, Bridges is wide open, doesn't hit it. By tiring out CP3, picking him up full court and attacking him on defense, making defensive adjustments such as playing Maxi Kleber at center more, giving Frank Ntilikina minutes, and doubling Devin Booker off ball screens, as well as making sure Luka didn't get cooked on defense by lightening his offensive role. The Mavs were able to completely dismantle the best team in the NBA. What we saw on Sunday night was a culmination of the adjustments the Mavs made throughout the series. While Phoenix definitely had the worst shooting night they possibly could have, the Mavs defense deserves all the credit for the absolute massacre. Hope it's not super obvious, but I actually started writing this video in March, and I intended on it going live before the playoffs. But thank God I didn't, because I would have looked like an idiot with the way the Suns got annihilated by Luka Doncic and the Mavericks in Game 7 on their own floor by 40 points, and it was never competitive at any point. This really just showed me how blasphemous it was for me to compare any team to the 2014 Spurs. But honestly, before this series, it really wasn't that crazy to consider this Suns team to be similar in many ways to that Spurs team. The statistical similarities were just staring me in the face, the similarities in coaching style and roster construction, and the shared pain of losing in the finals and then having a great season were all incredibly similar. The Suns, at their best, had incredible ball movement moments all throughout their finals run this season and even this playoffs that were reminiscent of the breakneck ball movement the Spurs commonly displayed. However, as long as the 37-year-old Chris Paul is running the offense, they'll always have this weakness the Mavs exposed, unless the Suns take a page from Coach Popovich's book and emulate the greatest team of all time.
The Spurs is the best basketball team he's ever played against. How would you characterize what you ran into in the finals?
I would agree. They were a much better team. That's what team basketball, and that's how team basketball should be played. You know, it's selfless. Guys move, cut, pass. You got a shot, you take it, but it's all for the team, and it's never about the individual. And,
I spent so much time researching and writing the script for this video that I was really praying the Suns would win. But honestly, I can't complain. This outcome is probably a lot better, honestly. I truly hope you guys enjoyed the video. I apologize for any audio issues near the end. I did lose my mic. I'm going to find it again, though. But I tried my best to give you guys quality statistical analysis and film breakdown. If y'all like the video, do me a favor, like the video and subscribe. I'll see y'all in the next video.